The 1970s were a tumultuous time for the American auto industry. Stricter emissions regulations, oil crises, and changing consumer preferences challenged manufacturers to adapt. Unfortunately, not all automakers hit the mark. Some cars from this era are remembered for their poor design, lackluster performance, or downright baffling concepts. Here are the 15 dumbest of the worst cars in America from the 1970s. Models that made us scratch our heads and wonder, what were they thinking? The AMC Matador Coupe, introduced in 1974, was perhaps one of the boldest yet strangest attempts by American Motors Corporation, AMC, to step into the realm of stylish, performance-oriented vehicles. Born out of a time when American automakers were vying for attention in a market dominated by muscle cars and sleek sports models, the Matador Coupe stood as a peculiar outlier. What was meant to be AMC's response to the demand for something sporty and fashionable quickly became a testament to automotive experimentation gone awry. With its bulging, swooping body lines and an almost alien-like presence, the Matador Coupe didn't quite fit in with its peers, and its attempts to combine style with performance fell flat. At a glance, the Matador Coupe looked like nothing else on the road. Whether that was a good or bad thing depended entirely on the observer. The design, often described as polarizing, was the brainchild of AMC's then head of styling, Dick Teague. Teague had overseen several successful designs, but the Matador Coupe was an aesthetic gamble. The vehicle's exaggerated bulbous lines and dramatically curved rear end made it look more like a futuristic spaceship than a performance car, especially in contrast to the sharp, aggressive angles of competitors like the Chevrolet Camaro or Pontiac Firebird. The front of the car, with its massive grille and protruding headlights, gave it a distinct and unmistakable appearance, though not necessarily in a way that screamed muscle car. AMC's design choices seemed to prioritize uniqueness over practicality or conventional beauty, which was a risky move. While some praised the Matador Coupe for its daring look, many found it awkward and ungainly. The wide, sweeping body made it feel unnecessarily large and bulky, and this heft translated into performance issues. For all its styling cues that suggested sleekness and speed, the Matador Coupe was far from nimble. Underneath its spaceship-like exterior was a heavy, lumbering vehicle that couldn't match the sprightliness of its competitors. Performance was a crucial point of failure for the Matador Coupe. Despite its muscular stance, the car's weight severely hindered its agility and acceleration. AMC offered a variety of engine options, including a 304 V8, a 360 V8, and even a 401 V8 for those seeking more power. Yet even the beefier engine variants couldn't overcome the car's cumbersome build. The Matador Coupe was sluggish off the line and didn't handle corners with the precision or excitement that buyers expected from a performance-oriented vehicle. While AMC had hoped to market the Matador as a competitor in the growing personal luxury car segment, which mixed performance with style, its underwhelming powertrain left it struggling to live up to its sleek marketing promises. In an attempt to bolster the car's image, AMC engaged in high-profile marketing efforts, including a partnership with NASCAR. The Matador Coupe even competed in several NASCAR races, where it performed reasonably well, securing some victories and proving that, at least in the hands of professionals, the car could be competitive. However, these racing achievements did little to translate into sales. The average buyer wasn't interested in the Matador's potential on the track. They were more concerned with its real-world driving dynamics, which left much to be desired. The timing of the Matador Coupe's release also worked against it. By the mid-1970s, the American car market was undergoing significant shifts. The oil crisis of 1973 had shaken consumers' priorities, leading to a growing demand for smaller, more fuel-efficient cars. The Matador Coupe, with its large, heavy frame and relatively poor fuel economy, seemed out of step with these new market realities. Additionally, the design, so daring and distinctive when first introduced, quickly felt dated as the automotive world began moving towards cleaner, more understated lines. Despite these issues, AMC stuck with the Matador Coupe for several years, hoping that its unique styling and association with NASCAR would eventually win over consumers. But by the time production ended in 1978, the Matador Coupe had failed to achieve the commercial success AMC had envisioned. Sales were disappointing, and the car's peculiar design ensured that it never gained the widespread popularity of its more conventional rivals. Today, the AMC Matador Coupe stands as a curious footnote in automotive history. While it never reached the heights of success that AMC hoped for, it has garnered a cult following among enthusiasts who appreciate its outlandish design and the boldness of its conception. In an era dominated by predictable car shapes and formulas, the Matador Coupe was a genuine attempt to do something different, even if it didn't quite hit the mark. The Chevrolet Cosworth Vega stands as one of the more puzzling chapters in American automotive history. Introduced in 1975 as a high-performance variant of the economy-minded Vega lineup, the Cosworth Vega was meant to be GM's bold attempt to offer a compact car with European sports car flair. It had all the right ingredients on paper: an advanced all-aluminum engine with dual overhead camshafts, a partnership with renowned British racing engine manufacturer Cosworth, and a design meant to deliver both performance and efficiency. However, in practice, the execution left much to be desired. The result was a car plagued by mechanical issues, underwhelming performance, and a reputation that it never quite escaped. At first glance, the Cosworth Vega seemed like an intriguing proposition. It was based on the Chevrolet Vega, a compact car launched in the early 1970s that was aimed at competing with the influx of small, fuel-efficient imports from Europe and Japan. The Vega itself had a rough start, with its own share of reliability problems, but GM had high hopes that the Cosworth variant would elevate the model's standing by injecting some much-needed excitement into the brand. The centerpiece of the Cosworth Vega was its engine, a 2.0-liter, four-cylinder power plant developed with input from Cosworth, a company known for its expertise in racing engines. The engine featured dual overhead camshafts and 16 valves, which for a car in this segment was considered cutting-edge technology. Despite these promising specs, the Cosworth Vega's engine struggled to deliver on its high-performance promise. Rated at just 110 horsepower, it fell far short of the power expected from a car that was supposed to challenge European sports cars like the BMW 2002 or the Alfa Romeo GTV. The high-revving engine lacked the torque needed for spirited acceleration, and while it could hold its own on winding roads, it simply wasn't fast enough to compete in the sports car market. Drivers expecting thrilling performance were left disappointed by the sluggish acceleration and the car's inability to match the excitement of its European counterparts. Adding to the performance woes, the Cosworth Vega was hampered by serious reliability issues, many of which were inherited from the base Vega. The all-aluminum engine, while advanced, was prone to overheating, a problem that had plagued the Vega since its inception. Despite GM's efforts to address this issue with the Cosworth model, the engine's cooling system remained inadequate for the demands placed on it. Overheating often led to warped cylinder heads and catastrophic engine failure, further damaging the car's already fragile reputation. In a market where reliability was becoming increasingly important, especially with the rise of durable, fuel-efficient imports, the Cosworth Vega's mechanical problems were a deal-breaker for many potential buyers. The build quality of the Cosworth Vega was also a point of contention. While the car featured some cosmetic upgrades, such as gold pinstriping, blacked-out trim, and unique alloy wheels, to set it apart from the standard Vega, these aesthetic touches did little to mask the fact that it was still built on a platform notorious for rust and other durability issues. Owners often found that their cars suffered from premature corrosion, which was a widespread problem with the Vega line as a whole. The body panels and undercarriage were particularly susceptible to rust, especially in areas with harsh winters. This further diminished the Cosworth Vega's appeal as buyers began to associate the car not only with subpar performance, but with a lack of longevity as well. Chevrolet's marketing efforts for the Cosworth Vega only added to the confusion. The car was positioned as a serious contender in the performance car market, but its price tag, over $6,000 at launch, placed it in competition with far more capable cars. For perspective, the Cosworth Vega was priced higher than a base Corvette, which was a much more established name in performance and luxury. Buyers who could afford a Cosworth Vega were left questioning why they wouldn't just opt for something like a Corvette or a European sports car that offered proven performance and prestige. One of the biggest challenges for the Cosworth Vega was timing. The mid-1970s was an era of growing concern over fuel economy, emissions, and reliability, all of which were brought to the forefront by the 1973 oil crisis. While the Vega lineup was originally conceived as an economical, fuel-efficient option for American buyers, the Cosworth version confused this message by focusing on performance. The Plymouth Volay is a prime example of how the automotive world can turn from triumph to tragedy in the blink of an eye. Launched in 1976 as the replacement for the aging Plymouth Valiant, the Volay had high expectations on its shoulders. Plymouth designed it to be a versatile, comfortable, and modern vehicle, one that would appeal to a wide range of American drivers. On paper, the Volay seemed to have everything going for it. It was built on Chrysler's new F-body platform, which promised improved handling and a smoother ride. And it came with an array of body styles, from a practical sedan to a sleek coupe. The early reviews were glowing. In fact, the Volay, alongside its Dodge Aspen sibling, won the prestigious Motor Trend Car of the Year award in 1976, a distinction that was supposed to cement its place as one of the decade's standout vehicles. For a brief moment, the Volay seemed destined for greatness. It was marketed as the family car of the future, a step forward in comfort and reliability for middle-class America. Buyers were initially enthusiastic, flocking to dealerships to take advantage of what was seen as a fresh, well-rounded offering from Plymouth. The car came with a choice of engines, from an economical 3.7-liter slant 6 to a more powerful 5.9-liter V8. It was versatile, with options for those looking for fuel economy or performance. The Volay's interior was also praised for being roomy and comfortable, a step up from the somewhat Spartan offerings of earlier Chrysler models. But it didn't take long for the Volay's shiny new image to start rusting, literally. What began as a promising chapter in Plymouth's history quickly unraveled into one of the most infamous stories of the 1970s auto industry. Despite its initial acclaim, the Volay suffered from catastrophic quality control issues that would soon come to define its legacy. One of the most notorious problems was the car's tendency to rust at an alarming rate. In some cases, owners reported significant rust damage after just a year or two of ownership. This was especially problematic in regions with harsh winters or high humidity, where the car's body panels would corrode prematurely, leaving ugly structural damage in their wake. The rust issues were compounded by poor build quality and a host of mechanical problems. Faulty electrical systems were a common complaint, with many owners experiencing issues ranging from non-functioning headlights to malfunctioning dashboards. Recalls became a regular occurrence for the Volay, as Chrysler scrambled to fix the myriad issues plaguing the car. The recalls covered everything from defective seatbelt systems to malfunctioning carburetors, but no matter how many times Chrysler attempted to address the problems, the car's reputation continued to suffer. The Volay, once hailed as the future of family sedans, was becoming a symbol of corporate failure and consumer frustration. One of the most damaging issues for the Volay was its infamous front suspension. The F-body platform, while designed to improve handling, turned out to be a source of serious safety concerns. The front suspension had a tendency to collapse, particularly in cold weather, which led to multiple recalls and a wave of bad press. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a potentially life-threatening defect that further eroded consumer confidence in the vehicle. The Volay's fall from grace was swift and brutal. By the late 1970s, what had started as a celebrated new model had become a punchline. Motor Trend's endorsement of the car, once a proud accolade, became a source of embarrassment. Critics and consumers alike pointed to the Volay as an example of how the U.S. auto industry had lost its way during the decade, putting out cars that were poorly engineered, rushed to market, and riddled with flaws. Chrysler, already struggling financially, was hit hard by the Volay's failure. The company was forced to issue countless recalls, and the negative word of mouth severely damaged Plymouth's reputation. For many buyers, the frustration was palpable. They had trusted in the promise of the car of the year, only to be met with constant trips to the mechanic, dealing with rusting body panels, failing electronics, and an endless stream of recalls. The Volare became a symbol of broken promises, and many owners felt betrayed by Plymouth and the American automotive industry as a whole. What's perhaps most tragic about the Volare's story is how quickly it went from success to failure. It's a tale of unrealized potential, of a car that could have been a worthy successor to the Valiant, but was ultimately undone by poor execution and bad luck. The Volare's quality control issues were part of a larger trend during the 1970s, when American automakers were grappling with new environmental regulations, changing consumer expectations, and increased competition from foreign manufacturers. In the rush to innovate and adapt, the Dodge St Regis, introduced in 1979, is often remembered as one of Chrysler's more unfortunate missteps in the ever-evolving landscape of American luxury sedans. It was a vehicle that promised much but delivered little, launching at a time when the automotive industry was undergoing significant shifts in both consumer preferences and technological advancements. Named after one of New York City's most iconic luxury hotels, the St Regis was meant to symbolize class, elegance, and sophistication, a flagship model that would elevate Dodge's reputation in the full-size luxury sedan segment. Yet rather than embodying the refinement of its namesake, the St Regis fell flat, struggling to find its identity amid an era of changing expectations. The late 1970s and early 1980s were a turbulent time for American carmakers. Consumers were moving away from the massive gas-guzzling sedans that had defined the previous decade, instead opting for smaller, more fuel-efficient cars in response to the oil crises of 1973 and 1979. Japanese automakers were quickly gaining ground with their affordable, reliable, and compact cars, while European luxury brands like BMW and Mercedes-Benz were becoming the new standard for elegance and performance. In this rapidly changing market, Chrysler sought to reinvent itself by offering a new kind of luxury car, one that retained the size and comfort Americans loved, but added a touch of modern efficiency and design. Unfortunately for Dodge, the St Regis was neither modern nor efficient. Built on Chrysler's aging R-body platform, the car was large, heavy, and awkwardly proportioned. While competitors like Cadillac and Lincoln were redefining luxury with sleek, contemporary designs, the St Regis seemed stuck in the past. Its most defining and controversial feature was its oversized front grille, which critics and consumers alike compared to a snowplow. This massive chrome facade dominated the front end of the car, giving it an ungainly and aggressive appearance that seemed more suited to a truck than a luxury sedan. The grille, along with its blocky body lines and bulky profile, made the St Regis look outdated even before it hit showroom floors. Beyond its lackluster styling, the St Regis suffered from a dearth of innovation. Under the hood, it was powered by a selection of V8 engines that, while capable of moving the car's hefty frame, were inefficient and unimpressive in terms of performance. By the late 1970s, fuel economy was becoming a critical factor for many buyers, especially in the wake of skyrocketing gas prices. The St Regis, with its gas-thirsty engines and lack of fuel-saving technology, felt like a relic from a bygone era. While Chrysler tried to market it as a luxurious, full-size sedan for discerning buyers, the St Regis struggled to compete against the more refined and technologically advanced offerings from other automakers. The car's interior, while spacious, lacked the premium feel that buyers expected from a luxury vehicle. In an era where attention to detail and high-quality materials were becoming the hallmark of luxury brands, the St Regis fell short. Its cabin was filled with cheap plastic components and uninspired design choices, offering little in the way of elegance or sophistication. The ride quality, while comfortable, was nothing extraordinary, and the car's handling was ponderous and imprecise, a result of its large size and outdated suspension system. One of the biggest challenges for the St Regis was that it simply couldn't differentiate itself in the market. It was too big and old-fashioned to appeal to the growing number of buyers looking for modern, efficient luxury cars, and it didn't have the cachet or performance to compete with the likes of Cadillac, Lincoln, or the European brands that were starting to dominate the luxury segment. Chrysler's attempt to position it as a premium offering felt out of touch with the times. While traditional American luxury sedans were still selling, they needed to evolve, and the St Regis was a clear sign that Dodge hadn't quite caught up. To make matters worse, the St Regis also suffered from Chrysler's broader financial woes. The company was teetering on the edge of bankruptcy by the late 1970s, and the St Regis became a victim of cost-cutting measures that impacted both its build quality and long-term viability. Production of the car was riddled with quality control issues, and many buyers found themselves dealing with a host of mechanical problems and breakdowns soon after purchase. Chrysler was issuing recalls and addressing complaints at a time when it could least afford to, and the St Regis became another burden for a company already struggling to stay afloat. The Mercury Bobcat stands as a reminder of an era when even slight miscalculations in design and engineering could tarnish the reputation of an entire brand. Introduced in 1975 as Mercury's answer to the compact car craze, the Bobcat was, in essence, a rebadged Ford Pinto, carrying over not just the Pinto's compact frame, but also its widely publicized issues. Chief among them, the infamous gas tank flaw that made the Pinto, and by extension the Bobcat, a symbol of automotive design failure. Despite Mercury's efforts to dress it up with cosmetic tweaks, the Bobcat struggled to escape the shadow of its predecessor's shortcomings and ultimately became another footnote in the long history of forgettable cars from the 1970s. The mid-1970s were a challenging time for American automakers, with consumers demanding smaller, more fuel-efficient cars in the wake of the oil crisis. Ford's Pinto was one of the company's initial forays into the compact market, aimed at countering the growing influence of Japanese and European imports. The Mercury Bobcat, introduced as a slightly more upscale version of the Pinto, was meant to offer a premium compact option for Mercury's traditionally more affluent buyers. Yet, instead of creating a truly distinct product, Mercury simply took the Pinto's foundation and added a few superficial changes, some extra chrome here, wood grain panels there, but underneath it was essentially the same car with the same problematic DNA. The Bobcat's most glaring issue, inherited from the Pinto, was its dangerously positioned gas tank. The placement of the fuel tank near the rear axle made it vulnerable to punctures in the event of a rear-end collision, which could lead to fires or explosions. This design flaw became a scandal for Ford in the late 1970s, when reports and lawsuits began to surface about Pintos catching fire during crashes. Although Mercury attempted to distance the Bobcat from this narrative, it was impossible to fully dissociate the two cars. The Bobcat, sharing the Pinto's platform, suffered from the same potential hazards, and the safety concerns that plagued the Pinto extended to it as well. For the average buyer, the Bobcat may have seemed like a sensible option at first glance. It was relatively affordable, compact, and boasted some of the fuel efficiency that was in high demand at the time. However, what it offered in practicality, it lacked in both innovation and appeal. The car's styling, while attempting to be more upscale than the Pinto, felt uninspired and generic. Mercury gave the Bobcat a more refined grille, added a bit more chrome, and offered upgraded interiors with better upholstery and trim, but these superficial upgrades couldn't mask the car's core flaws. The Bobcat's design was still based on the Pinto's utilitarian and somewhat uninspired blueprint, and it struggled to stand out in a crowded compact car market where buyers were looking for more than just a Pinto in a tuxedo. Mechanically, the Bobcat was also nothing to write home about. It came equipped with either a 2.3-liter four-cylinder engine or a slightly smaller 2.0-liter option, neither of which offered particularly impressive performance. The Bobcat was slow, underpowered, and lacked the kind of driving excitement that many other compacts, especially imports, were beginning to offer. The car was designed to be economical, but it wasn't particularly efficient by modern standards, and its lackluster performance left many buyers feeling underwhelmed. The car's handling was also clunky and far from refined, reflecting its budget origins. Furthermore, the Bobcat's reputation wasn't helped by the increasing focus on safety during this period. By the late 1970s, consumers were becoming more aware of crash test results, safety features, and reliability ratings. Unfortunately for the Bobcat, it inherited the Pinto's tarnished safety record, making it difficult for Mercury to position the car as a safe and reliable option for families or urban commuters. The exploding gas tank issue loomed over the Bobcat's reputation like a dark cloud, and no amount of rebranding or cosmetic improvement could completely erase that association. Despite its shortcomings, the Mercury Bobcat had a brief moment of success, particularly in its early years. Its compact size, combined with Mercury's more upscale branding, did appeal to some buyers who wanted something smaller than the typical American sedan but weren't ready to make the jump to a foreign car. It also came in a variety of body styles, including a hatchback, sedan, and station wagon, which offered versatility to different types of buyers. However, as the 1970s wore on and the competition from Japanese imports grew fiercer, the Bobcat's limited appeal began to fade. The 1970 Cadillac El Dorado was a quintessential symbol of American automotive excess, a massive front-wheel drive luxury coupe that epitomized the bigger is better mentality of its era. Cadillac's flagship model had always been about luxury, status, and grandeur. But by 1970, the El Dorado had taken these traits to almost comical extremes. While it was certainly designed to turn heads and make a bold statement, the car's enormous proportions, heavy handling, and insatiable thirst for fuel made it feel less like a sophisticated luxury vehicle and more like a lumbering land yacht struggling to navigate a rapidly changing world. At over 18 feet long and nearly 5,000 pounds, the 1970 El Dorado was one of the largest vehicles on the road, a towering behemoth that dwarfed nearly everything around it. From its massive front grille to its long, sweeping body lines, everything about the car screamed opulence. It exuded a sense of power and authority that was hard to ignore, but that power came at a cost. The car's sheer size made it notoriously difficult to maneuver, especially in tighter spaces like city streets or parking lots. The El Dorado's front-wheel drive layout, a relatively novel feature at the time, was meant to improve handling. But even with this innovation, the car's weight and bulk made it more akin to steering a boat than a car. While many luxury car buyers of the era were drawn to the El Dorado's bold and imposing presence, the driving experience left much to be desired. The El Dorado was built for straight-line cruising, not nimble handling or responsive cornering. On the open highway, it could glide smoothly and effortlessly, soaking up bumps with its soft suspension. But in city driving or more demanding situations, the car's limitations became painfully apparent. The El Dorado's wide turning radius, sluggish steering, and general lack of agility meant that driving it required both patience and a lot of room. It was a car built for grand entrances, but not necessarily for the everyday grind of urban commuting or tight, winding roads. Under the hood, the 1970 El Dorado boasted an enormous 8.2-liter, 500 cubic inch V8 engine, one of the largest production engines ever fitted to a passenger car. This colossal power plant churned out 400 horsepower, giving the El Dorado plenty of grunt when needed. However, the car's massive weight and less than aerodynamic profile made it clear that performance wasn't the primary focus. Despite the powerful engine, the El Dorado wasn't particularly quick off the line, and its acceleration felt more like a gradual swell of momentum than a burst of speed. This wasn't a car meant for thrilling driving experiences. It was designed for comfort, luxury, and prestige. Of course, all that power came with a serious downside: fuel consumption. At a time when gasoline was still relatively cheap, Cadillac didn't seem particularly concerned with efficiency. The El Dorado guzzled fuel at an alarming rate, averaging somewhere in the range of 8 to 10 miles per gallon. In the early 1970s, this wasn't yet a major issue, but by the mid-decade, the oil crises of 1973 and 1979 would make the El Dorado's abysmal fuel economy a glaring problem. As gas prices soared and consumers began demanding more fuel-efficient vehicles, the El Dorado, with its outsized thirst for fuel, seemed increasingly out of touch with the realities of the time. It was a car built for an era of abundance, but that era was rapidly coming to an end. Inside, the El Dorado was nothing short of a rolling palace. Cadillac spared no expense in making sure that its flagship coupe oozed luxury from every surface. The interior was swathed in plush leather, rich wood paneling, and gleaming chrome accents. Every detail was designed to pamper the occupants, from the soft, deeply cushioned seats to the abundance of creature comforts like power windows, air conditioning, and even optional automatic climate control. The ride was supremely smooth, with the car's soft suspension and sound insulation isolating passengers from the outside world, creating a cocoon of luxury as the El Dorado glided down the road. But for all its comfort and opulence, the El Dorado's interior also felt somewhat detached from the evolving tastes of the time. In the 1960s, Cadillac had set the standard for luxury with cars like the El Dorado. But by 1970, the world was changing. Consumers were beginning to demand more than just size and excess from their luxury cars. European brands like Mercedes-Benz and BMW were offering a new kind of luxury, one that blended performance, innovation, and refinement in ways that the El Dorado simply couldn't match. While the Cadillac's soft, pillow-like ride was perfect for long highway cruises, it lacked the precision and driver engagement that many buyers were beginning to seek in a luxury vehicle. Ford's Maverick Grabber, introduced in the early 1970s, was yet another attempt by American automakers to tap into the growing muscle car market while keeping costs down and broadening appeal. The idea behind the Maverick Grabber was simple. Take the compact, economical Maverick and inject it with a bit of attitude and flair, giving younger buyers a budget-friendly, sporty alternative to the more expensive Mustangs and Torinos. However, the Grabber's promise of performance fell flat, and what it delivered was more style than substance. A car that looked fast but failed to live up to the aggressive image it tried so hard to project. On paper, the Maverick Grabber seemed like it could be a hit. It came decked out with racing stripes, a blacked-out grille, a bold rear spoiler, and Grabber-exclusive bright colors that screamed muscle car from a distance. Ford leaned heavily on the car's flashy appearance to attract attention, hoping that the visual cues alone would be enough to convince buyers that the Grabber was a serious contender in the performance car market. With names like Grabber Orange and Grabber Blue, the car certainly looked the part of a street machine built for speed. But beneath the hood, the reality was far less exciting. The Maverick, introduced in 1969 as a compact, fuel-efficient alternative to Ford's larger models, was never meant to be a performance vehicle. It was a sensible, bare-bones car for budget-conscious drivers, designed to compete with smaller imports like the Volkswagen Beetle. When the Maverick Grabber arrived on the scene, it retained much of that economy car DNA. The base engine options were lackluster at best, a 170 cubic inch inline six, and a slightly larger 200 cubic inch six-cylinder engine. Both were woefully underpowered for a car trying to pose as a muscle car. Even the optional 302 cubic inch V8 engine, while more powerful, didn't provide the kind of high-octane thrills that buyers expected from a car with the name Grabber plastered across its body. In terms of performance, the Maverick Grabber was simply outmatched by its competition. The car's engine struggled to produce the kind of horsepower that muscle car enthusiasts were accustomed to, and its handling, while decent for a compact, didn't offer the sharpness or agility needed to make up for the lack of power. This was especially disappointing in a market where cars like the Pontiac GTO, Chevrolet Chevelle SS, and even Ford's own Mustang were setting the standard for performance and style. The Grabber's sluggish acceleration and uninspired driving dynamics made it clear that this was more of a cosmetic package than a true muscle car. Despite its shortcomings, Ford marketed the Maverick Grabber as a sporty, youthful car for the masses, and in some ways, that strategy worked. The car was affordable, with a starting price significantly lower than the full-fledged muscle cars of the era, and its flashy appearance appealed to younger buyers who wanted the look of performance without the price tag. The Grabber's distinctive styling, complete with eye-catching side stripes, hood scoops, which were non-functional, and bold color schemes, made it a fun, head-turning car, even if it couldn't back up its looks with actual muscle. But for car enthusiasts who expected more than just a showy exterior, the Maverick Grabber was a letdown. It was at its core still a Maverick, a budget-friendly, utilitarian car dressed up in muscle car clothing. The gap between its aggressive name and its underwhelming performance was hard to ignore. For all the grabber's bravado, it simply couldn't compete with the era's real muscle cars, and that disconnect left many buyers feeling disappointed. In the realm of automotive history, the grabber is often remembered as a car that promised much but delivered little. A reminder that flashy looks can only take you so far when there's no real power to back them up. Part of the Maverick grabber's problem was timing. By the early 1970s, the muscle car era was already beginning to wane. Rising insurance costs, tightening emissions regulations, and the looming oil crisis were starting to shift the focus away from high-powered, gas-guzzling machines toward more practical, fuel-efficient vehicles. In this environment, the Maverick grabber found itself caught between two worlds. It wasn't efficient enough to be considered a true economy car, but it also wasn't powerful or fast enough to be taken seriously as a performance car. The result was a car that tried to appeal to everyone, but ended up fully satisfying no one. That said, the Maverick grabber did have its fans. For those who weren't necessarily looking for the raw power of a muscle car, but still wanted something with a bit of style and attitude, the grabber was an affordable way to stand out from the crowd. Its compact size made it easier to handle than some of the larger muscle cars, and for buyers who valued appearance over performance. By the mid-1970s, the Chevrolet Impala, once the symbol of American automotive excellence, had become a pale reflection of its former self. The 1974 model in particular showcased just how far the mighty had fallen. Once celebrated for its sleek lines, muscular engines, and balanced handling, the Impala had devolved into a bloated, underpowered vehicle that seemed utterly at odds with the glory of its earlier years. The 1974 Impala was a car trapped between the past and the rapidly changing automotive landscape, embodying the era's excesses and shortcomings all in one large, boxy package. The 1960s were a golden age for the Impala. Back then, it was the car that Americans aspired to own, a stylish full-size sedan that struck the perfect balance between performance, comfort, and elegance. It had power under the hood, graceful lines, and a presence on the road that made it a favorite among families and car enthusiasts alike. The Impala SS models, in particular, were legendary, boasting powerful V8 engines and muscular styling that helped them hold their own in the competitive muscle car market. But by 1974, that sparkle had faded, and what remained was a hulking, oversized car struggling to keep up with the shifting tides of the automotive world. One of the most glaring issues with the 1974 Impala was its size. At over 220 inches long and weighing in at more than 2 tons, the car had grown to almost absurd proportions. The sleek, aggressive lines of the 1960s models had been replaced by a massive, boxy design that lacked both finesse and charm. The car's enormous front grille and slab-sided body gave it an almost tank-like appearance, and maneuvering it through city streets or tight parking spaces was a challenge even for experienced drivers. It felt more like piloting a battleship than driving a car, and the sheer size of the vehicle made it feel out of touch with the growing demand for smaller, more efficient cars. The driving experience didn't fare much better. The 1974 Impala was underpowered for its size, with its base 350 cubic inch V8 engine delivering sluggish acceleration that left much to be desired. Even the optional 454 cubic inch V8, which had been a powerhouse in earlier years, was hampered by emissions controls and rising fuel efficiency concerns, sapping it of the raw power that once defined the Impala's driving experience. The result was a car that felt slow and lethargic, especially compared to the more nimble, performance-oriented vehicles that had been synonymous with Chevrolet just a decade earlier. For drivers who had grown up with the thrill of the earlier Impalas, the 1974 model's lackluster performance was a bitter disappointment. Handling was yet another area where the 1974 Impala struggled. The car's massive size, combined with its soft suspension, meant that cornering and tight turns were far from smooth. The Impala's handling was more akin to a boat's, with significant body roll and imprecise steering that made it feel disconnected from the road. On straight highways, it could lumber along with relative comfort, but any attempt at spirited driving revealed the car's shortcomings. It was a car built for leisurely cruising, not for the kind of dynamic driving that had once been associated with the name Impala. Even the interior, while spacious, felt outdated, with materials and designs that lacked the premium feel of its competitors in the full-size sedan market. Adding to the woes of the 1974 Impala was the growing public concern over fuel economy. In the midst of the 1973 oil crisis, American consumers were becoming increasingly aware of the need for fuel-efficient cars. The Impala, with its heavy frame and thirsty V8 engines, was anything but efficient. It guzzled fuel at an alarming rate, averaging less than 10 miles per gallon in city driving. And this thirst for gasoline was especially problematic at a time when long lines at gas stations and skyrocketing fuel prices had become the norm. The Impala's poor fuel economy made it seem out of step with the times, a relic of an era when gas was cheap and no one worried about miles per gallon. Chevrolet, like many American automakers of the time, was struggling to adapt to these new realities. The 1974 Impala, weighed down by new safety regulations, emissions controls, and changing market expectations, felt like a car built for a bygone era. The chrome-laden, heavy designs that had once signaled prestige and luxury now seemed excessive and inefficient. While European and Japanese automakers were introducing smaller, more agile vehicles that appealed to a new generation of buyers, Chevrolet's full-size sedans, including the Impala, were starting to feel like dinosaurs in a rapidly evolving automotive landscape. The Chrysler Cordoba, introduced in the mid-1970s, became a cultural touchstone thanks in large part to the suave charm of Ricardo Montalban and his memorable advertisements touting rich Corinthian leather. These commercials painted a picture of opulence and sophistication, elevating the Cordoba in the eyes of many consumers. Yet, behind the allure of luxury and the catchy tagline lay a vehicle that struggled to deliver on its promises. While it sought to embody elegance and class, the Cordoba ultimately felt more like an exercise in marketing than a genuine luxury automobile. The Cordoba was Chrysler's attempt to carve out a niche in the growing personal luxury segment, a market that was booming in the wake of shifting consumer preferences toward more luxurious and stylish vehicles. In theory, the Cordoba aimed to blend comfort, style, and performance, competing with other luxury coupes like the Pontiac Grand Prix and the Oldsmobile Cutlass. However, from its inception, it became clear that the Cordoba had some significant shortcomings that would hinder its success. In terms of styling, the Cordoba featured a design that was both distinctive and polarizing. Its elongated silhouette with a somewhat heavy front end was meant to convey a sense of grandeur, but instead, it often came off as awkward. The wide stance and rounded edges aimed for a sleek look, but often resulted in a car that felt bloated and cumbersome. While its interior was indeed adorned with plush materials, including the much-touted Corinthian leather, the overall aesthetic lacked the sophistication of true luxury vehicles. Instead of feeling refined and elegant, the cabin often felt more like a collection of gimmicks than a cohesive design. Performance-wise, the Cordoba fell short of the expectations set by its marketing. Equipped with a variety of V8 engine options, the most powerful being a 400 cubic inch variant, the Cordoba offered adequate power, but lacked the responsiveness and agility that luxury car buyers sought. The car's acceleration was sluggish, and while it could comfortably cruise on highways, it failed to inspire confidence on winding roads or during spirited driving. The driving experience felt more akin to that of a heavy sedan rather than the refined, performance-oriented luxury coupe that Chrysler had intended to create. Handling was another area where the Cordoba struggled. The suspension, designed for comfort, often resulted in a floaty ride that detracted from any sense of control behind the wheel. Many drivers reported that the Cordoba felt disconnected from the road, with significant body roll during turns that made it challenging to navigate with precision. For a vehicle that aimed to combine luxury with performance, the driving dynamics left much to be desired. making it hard for the Cordoba to compete with the sportier offerings from rival brands. The luxury claims made by Chrysler also rang somewhat hollow in the face of its competition. Brands like Cadillac, Lincoln, and even Oldsmobile were setting high standards for luxury vehicles, offering superior craftsmanship, innovative technology, and true performance. In contrast, the Cordoba's luxurious image felt more like a marketing facade than a reflection of quality and refinement. Buyers looking for a genuinely upscale experience often found themselves disappointed by the Cordoba's shortcomings, leading many to seek alternatives that better fulfilled their desires for both luxury and performance. Despite its flaws, the Cordoba did find a market, particularly among buyers drawn to its marketing appeal and the promise of a luxurious lifestyle. Its unique combination of features, albeit underwhelming in execution, did resonate with a segment of consumers who appreciated the notion of luxury without the price tag of more established brands. The Cordoba was often seen as a stylish option for those who wanted to make a statement without committing to a full-fledged luxury car. In the end, the Chrysler Cordoba serves as a fascinating case study in automotive marketing and consumer perception. While it enjoyed a degree of fame thanks to the charisma of Ricardo Montalban and the allure of rich Corinthian leather, the reality of the car was far less glamorous. Its lackluster performance, uninspired styling, and the disconnect between its marketing and actual driving experience ultimately hampered its legacy. The Cordoba remains a reminder of the challenges faced by automakers during a tumultuous period in automotive history, an era where the dreams of luxury and performance sometimes collided with the harsh realities of design and engineering. Today, the Cordoba is often remembered with a sense of nostalgia, evoking images of a bygone era when marketing could elevate a vehicle's status, even if its performance and design did not quite measure up. The Ford Fairmont Futura emerged in the late 1970s as Ford's ambitious endeavor to inject a bit of style and sportiness into the Fairmont lineup. Positioned as a sleek fastback variant, the Futura aimed to capture the attention of a new generation of buyers looking for a blend of practicality and modern flair. Unfortunately, what was meant to represent a forward-thinking design instead turned into a curious misstep, leaving it more awkward than innovative, and the driving experience failed to live up to the futuristic moniker it bore. At first glance, the Fairmont Futura had the makings of an attractive vehicle. Its sleek, sloping roofline was an attempt to evoke a sense of motion and speed, a nod to the sporty coupes that were gaining popularity during that era. However, the design choices quickly became problematic. The fastback rear end seemed to clash with the car's otherwise boxy body, creating a jarring aesthetic that left many scratching their heads. Instead of achieving a harmonious balance between modernity and practicality, the Futura's design felt like an awkward compromise, an effort to blend two disparate styles that didn't quite mesh. The boxy proportions of the Fairmont were rooted in the practicality that characterized many American sedans of the time. Ford aimed to provide ample interior space and a comfortable ride, which the Fairmont delivered in spades. However, these utilitarian aspects clashed with the Futura's aspirations for a sportier look. The result was a car that struggled to establish a clear identity. Was it a compact sedan with a sporty flair, or a stylish coupe with practical features? This confusion left potential buyers uncertain about what the Futura truly offered. Under the hood, the Fairmont Futura's performance further detracted from its appeal. While buyers were looking for excitement and agility in a vehicle that was marketed as futuristic, the engine options were disappointingly underwhelming. The standard four-cylinder engine struggled to deliver the kind of performance that enthusiasts craved, resulting in sluggish acceleration and lackluster power on the road. Even the optional V6 engine, while providing a slight boost in performance, couldn't transform the Futura into the sporty coupe it aspired to be. The driving experience felt more like a chore than an adventure, as the car's lack of power made it challenging to enjoy the open road. Handling, too, left much to be desired. The Futura's suspension, while designed for comfort, did little to inspire confidence in spirited driving. The soft ride resulted in noticeable body roll during turns, making it difficult to tackle corners with any semblance of excitement. For a car that aimed to evoke a sense of sportiness, the driving dynamics felt disconnected and uninspiring, further diminishing its appeal to potential buyers seeking a true performance experience. Moreover, the timing of the Futura's introduction coincided with a shift in consumer preferences. The late 1970s and early 1980s saw a growing emphasis on fuel efficiency and practicality as gas prices surged and the oil crisis reshaped the automotive landscape. Buyers were increasingly drawn to smaller, more economical vehicles that prioritized efficiency over power. In this context, the Futura's underwhelming engine options and awkward design made it hard to compete with more agile and fuel-efficient competitors entering the market. As a result, the Futura struggled to find its footing in a rapidly evolving automotive world. Despite its shortcomings, the Fairmont Futura still holds a certain charm for enthusiasts today. Its unique blend of features, albeit flawed, evokes nostalgia for an era when automakers were experimenting with new designs and concepts. While it may not have lived up to its name or aspirations, the Futura remains a testament to Ford's attempts to innovate and capture the imaginations of consumers in a changing landscape. In retrospect, the Ford Fairmont Futura serves as a reminder of the challenges faced by automakers during a tumultuous time in the industry. It represents a vehicle caught between practicality and ambition, striving for a sporty identity, but ultimately falling short. While it may not have become the futuristic icon Ford envisioned, it remains a noteworthy chapter in the history of American cars, one that reflects both the aspirations and missteps of its time. Today, it is remembered not just for its awkward design and lackluster performance, but as an example of how ambition and execution do not always align in the world of automotive innovation. The Buick Skylark, once a symbol of American automotive ingenuity, faced significant challenges during the tumultuous landscape of the 1970s and 1980s. This era, marked by a wave of underwhelming vehicles, saw the Skylark struggle to carve out its identity. While it was intended to be a sporty mid-size car, the Skylark's uninspired design and lackluster performance rendered it forgettable, and it ultimately became a victim of the broader decline in American automotive quality. Initially introduced in the early 1960s, the Skylark enjoyed a reputation for style and performance, often celebrated for its sleek lines and spirited driving dynamics. However, by the time the later models rolled out in the mid-1970s, the Skylark had lost much of that luster. The automotive industry was facing mounting pressures from rising fuel costs, stricter emissions regulations, and changing consumer preferences. Amidst this turmoil, the Skylark's design underwent a transformation that prioritized practicality over personality, resulting in a vehicle that felt generic and uninspired. From the outside, the later Skylarks bore a resemblance to many of their contemporaries, boxy, heavy-set cars that lacked the flair of earlier models. The once distinctive lines and curves that characterized the Skylark had been replaced by a more utilitarian look, making it blend in rather than stand out. The bland facade was emblematic of a broader trend in the automotive industry, where manufacturers focused on cost-cutting measures rather than innovative design. The Skylark's appearance did little to excite potential buyers, and it often got lost in the shuffle among more visually striking competitors. Under the hood, the Skylark's performance left much to be desired. Although it offered a range of engine options, including a 4-cylinder and various V6 options, none could deliver the spirited driving experience that the name Skylark had once promised. The engines were often underpowered, leaving the car feeling sluggish and unresponsive, especially when compared to the performance-oriented offerings from rival manufacturers. As consumers increasingly sought excitement and engagement in their vehicles, the Skylark's lack of power and responsiveness became a significant drawback. The handling dynamics of the Skylark further exacerbated its performance issues. Designed more for comfort than agility, the suspension system struggled to provide the necessary balance between a smooth ride and responsive handling. Many drivers noted that the car felt heavy and disconnected from the road, making it challenging to navigate corners with confidence. While the Skylark was adequate for everyday commuting, it failed to capture the hearts of enthusiasts looking for a car that could deliver an engaging driving experience. In the face of fierce competition from both American and foreign manufacturers, the Skylark found itself at a disadvantage. The late 1970s and early 1980s saw the rise of more compact and efficient cars, many of which offered better performance and a more engaging driving experience. Models from brands like Honda, Toyota, and even Ford began to attract attention with their sporty designs and peppy engines, leaving the Skylark to struggle in a market that was rapidly evolving. While other manufacturers adapted to changing consumer tastes, Buick's flagship model felt stagnant and unable to keep pace. Moreover, the Skylark's interior, while spacious and comfortable, lacked the refinement and quality that had once been a hallmark of the Buick brand. Cheaper materials and a design that prioritized function over flair made the cabin feel dated and uninspired. While it was certainly practical for families, it didn't evoke the luxury and prestige that buyers had come to expect from Buick. In an age when competitors were introducing more modern and inviting interiors, the Skylark's lack of thoughtful design choices became a significant liability. Despite its challenges, the Buick Skylark did find a modest following among consumers who valued its practicality and comfort over sportiness. For many, it served as a reliable, family-friendly vehicle that could handle day-to-day driving needs. However, for those seeking excitement and innovation in their automobiles, the Skylark was ultimately a disappointment, a far cry from the successes of Buick's earlier models that had earned the brand its reputation. In retrospect, the Buick Skylark stands as a testament to a difficult era for American automakers. It reflects the broader struggles faced by the industry in adapting to changing market demands and consumer expectations. While it may not have lived up to its original promise of sportiness and excitement, it remains a piece of automotive history, a reminder of the challenges faced by a once great nameplate during a time of transformation and upheaval. The AMC Hornet emerged in the early 1970s as American Motors Corporation's answer to the growing demand for compact, affordable cars in a market increasingly influenced by fuel efficiency and practicality. However, despite its intentions to provide an economical option for consumers, the Hornet's execution fell flat, marked by uninspired styling and lackluster performance that ultimately prevented it from making a significant impact. When it debuted, the Hornet was positioned as a budget-friendly vehicle designed to appeal to families and first-time car buyers. The compact size made it easy to maneuver in urban settings, and its affordability was certainly attractive in an era when many consumers were tightening their belts due to rising fuel prices and economic uncertainty. However, the Hornet's boxy and somewhat utilitarian design did little to ignite excitement among potential buyers. Instead of presenting a modern and appealing aesthetic, the Hornet's angular lines and plain profile made it blend into the background of the automotive landscape, overshadowed by more stylish offerings from competitors. Styling is often a critical factor in a car's appeal, and the Hornet struggled significantly in this area. While some compact cars of the time boasted sporty curves and innovative designs, the Hornet's exterior was characterized by a no-frills approach that felt outdated even at launch. The heavy use of flat surfaces and sharp angles contributed to a look that was more practical than pleasing. In an industry where design can make or break a vehicle, the Hornet's appearance failed to resonate with consumers looking for something that offered more than just basic transportation. Under the hood, the Hornet offered a selection of engines, ranging from a modest 4-cylinder to a larger 6-cylinder option. However, regardless of the choice, the performance left much to be desired. The engine power was adequate for everyday driving, but it never felt spirited or engaging. Many drivers found the acceleration sluggish, which made merging onto highways or navigating hilly terrains feel like a chore. The Hornet's handling dynamics did little to bolster its image. Its soft suspension and lack of responsiveness made it feel cumbersome on the road. Instead of providing a nimble driving experience that many compact cars offered, the Hornet delivered a ride that felt disconnected and uninspired. In terms of interior quality, the Hornet continued its trend of mediocrity. While it did offer decent space for passengers and cargo, The materials used in the cabin often felt cheap and poorly assembled. This contributed to an overall impression that, despite its budget-friendly price tag, the Hornet was lacking in quality and refinement. The interior design was functional but uninspired, failing to provide the comfort and convenience that buyers sought in a compact car. It was a stark contrast to other vehicles that managed to combine affordability with a sense of style and comfort. Furthermore, the Hornet faced stiff competition in the compact car market. Brands like Toyota, Honda, and even domestic competitors like Ford and Chevrolet began to offer models that not only prioritized fuel efficiency, but also delivered better design and performance. As consumers began to shift their preferences toward these more compelling alternatives, the Hornet struggled to maintain its foothold. The combination of its outdated look, mediocre handling, and lack of engaging driving dynamics rendered it a less attractive option in an evolving market. Despite its shortcomings, the AMC Hornet found a niche audience among those who prioritized cost over performance or aesthetics. It appealed to budget-conscious consumers who simply needed a reliable means of transportation without frills. However, for many, the Hornet's lack of flair and excitement kept it from being a hit, even within the budget car segment. In hindsight, the AMC Hornet serves as a reminder of the challenges faced by American automakers during a pivotal period in automotive history. It represents a time when the industry was grappling with significant changes in consumer preferences and market dynamics. While the Hornet may have aimed to be a practical, compact car, it ultimately fell short of the expectations set by a rapidly evolving market. The legacy of the Hornet is one of missed opportunities, a vehicle that highlights the importance of not only functionality, but also design and performance in creating a car that resonates with consumers. It stands as a testament to the complexities of the automotive landscape, where even the most practical offerings can struggle to find their place. The Oldsmobile Omega was introduced in the mid-1970s as part of General Motors' strategy to tap into the compact car market, which was gaining traction amidst rising fuel prices and changing consumer preferences. Positioned as an affordable option, the Omega aimed to offer practicality and economy to budget-conscious buyers. However, this ambitious endeavor quickly faltered as the vehicle became overshadowed by a host of issues, both mechanical and aesthetic, that left it struggling to find a foothold in an increasingly competitive landscape. From the outset, the Omega's design was decidedly uninspired. While other automakers were experimenting with more dynamic shapes and appealing aesthetics, the Omega sported a boxy, utilitarian look that did little to excite potential buyers. Its awkward proportions and lack of distinctive styling made it blend into the sea of compact cars on the market, failing to capture the attention of consumers who were looking for something fresh and engaging. Instead of embodying the spirit of innovation and flair, the Omega's design felt like a hasty afterthought, lacking the personality that could have set it apart from its competitors. Under the hood, the Omega struggled to impress as well. It offered a range of engines, but the performance was largely underwhelming. The base four-cylinder engine was criticized for being sluggish and lacking the power needed for confident acceleration, while the available V6 option, although slightly more robust, still left drivers wanting more. In an era when consumers were beginning to seek out cars that offered a blend of efficiency and spirited performance, the Omega's engines fell short of those expectations. Many drivers found the driving experience to be uninspiring, marked by a lack of responsiveness and an overall sense of disengagement. Mechanical reliability further tarnished the Omega's reputation. Owners frequently reported a range of issues, from electrical problems to transmission failures, which contributed to a sense of frustration and disappointment. While many vehicles of this era faced challenges, the Omega's persistent mechanical troubles made it particularly hard for it to establish a loyal customer base. The notion of purchasing a small, affordable car was undermined by the fear of frequent repairs and breakdowns, leaving many potential buyers wary of investing in an Omega. Additionally, the Omega's interior, while functional, offered little in terms of comfort or refinement. The cabin was designed with cost-cutting in mind, using materials that often felt cheap and uninspired. This lack of attention to detail diminished the overall driving experience, making it difficult for the Omega to compete with rivals that provided more thoughtfully designed interiors. Instead of feeling like a cozy and inviting space, the Omega's interior left occupants feeling like they were simply enduring their commute, rather than enjoying it. The Oldsmobile Omega's struggles were further exacerbated by the changing dynamics of the automotive market. As foreign manufacturers began to dominate the compact segment, with cars that boasted better performance, reliability, and design, the Omega found itself increasingly marginalized. Brands like Honda and Toyota were rapidly gaining popularity, offering vehicles that combined affordability with a sense of quality and innovation. The Omega, meanwhile, appeared stagnant in comparison, struggling to capture the imagination of a market that was evolving. In the end, the Oldsmobile Omega serves as a poignant reminder of the challenges faced by American automakers during a time of transformation. Despite its intentions to provide a practical and affordable compact car, the Omega's lack of personality, combined with mechanical issues and uninspired design, led to its unfortunate decline. Today, it is often remembered as one of Oldsmobile's most forgettable models, a vehicle that highlights the importance of marrying functionality with style and reliability. As the automotive landscape continues to evolve, the lessons learned from the Omega's shortcomings remain relevant, serving as a testament to the complexities of designing a car that resonates with consumers in an ever-changing market. While the 1970s may have been a challenging decade for American automakers, these cars stand out as some of the worst examples of what the industry had to offer. From strange designs to underpowered engines, these 13 more worst and bizarre American cars remind us that not every idea is a good one. Let us know which one you think deserves the title of worst car of the 1970s.